Buongiorno, Mondo, and welcome back to 15 with Fosca, the podcast. My guest today is video journalist and filmmaker Kirsten Hills. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's funny because the only way I can see you, even though we're neighbors and friends, is by inviting you on the podcast. So I'm happy that we're here today talking about your life and the work that you do and your wonderful new project, Souls of Italy.
Thanks so much for inviting me, Fosca. It's delightful to be here.
I really couldn't be happier. So we can tell by your beautiful accent that you are not from these parts. So I wanted to start by asking you a little bit about how you came to Italy from the UK.
So the long and short of it is that I'm married to an Italian. So it's his fault.
Yeah, it always is.
Yeah, I won't tell you the long story, but in a nutshell, I met him when we were on a family holiday, age 17. We lost touch for about 10 years. We got back in contact. He got a job in London. I proposed to him. We moved in together. And here we are, 2 kids later, living in Florence. So that's in a nutshell is what brought us to Florence. My background is as a video journalist. Mm-hmm. Do you want me to go into this now?
Yeah, talk about it a little. Even though your love story is great, this is why you're such a great storyteller, because you've got a great story.
So I was working at the BBC as a video journalist. Mm-hmm. At the time, the BBC was going in a direction where they realised quite quickly that it was the explosion of the internet. And so it made far more sense to have each of the journalists trained to use a camera, so thereby doubling the content creation. So what would traditionally happen, or usually happen, is the journalist would be sent out with a camera operator and would give directions, work together with the camera, usually a cameraman, and put together a creative kind of idea for each story that was being reported on. So instead, I'm talking about 17 years ago, maybe longer. It was a movement that came really from New York, where the idea was everyone can operate a camera. And this is sort of around the time when mobile phones were coming out.
Exactly.
I'm sounding very old now. So I was given all the training in terms of how to film basic sequences, how to tell a story, how to write scripts, how to do the voiceover. So a typical day in the newsroom would mean having an editorial meeting at the beginning in which we were expected to bring 2 or 3 stories. Then the journalists would be assigned stories, and the producing team would work out how those stories were told. And I would do both roles, more at the beginning, more on the side of the production. But that was incredible experience in terms of learning what makes a story, how we tell it, how do we adjust what we're telling to fit in what our audience wants, which at that time wasn't as fragmented as today's audiences are. So it was an amazing background. And if I was reporting, I would go out with camera kit. I would do the filming. I would do a stand-up piece to camera where I'd flip the screen and do umpteen takes. And then I would write the script. I would do the voiceover, edit it, and make sure it was delivered for the next bulletin. So it was a really exciting way to work. It was in local news, so the stories were very sort of manageable at that stage. And then... I'm not telling this very well, actually. I don't know if you can edit this around. Because I actually also got onto predating that, I got onto a traineeship at the BBC, which was a really great experience in terms of doing research in documentaries. So I've got the kind of news background, I've got the documentaries and research side. So both of those have really helped with the skills that I'm using now.
Yeah, and have formed, I think, your work. And I'd like to segue into that and talk a little more just about the work you do now here in Florence.
Yeah, so going back to the original question about why we moved. My son was born, and I wanted to go back to the BBC on a part-time basis, and that wasn't possible. I like to think it was because my brilliant career at the BBC that they couldn't possibly do without me. But I think it was just more needs and necessity. And so that really kick-started the questions about not really happy with the balance of things here. So my husband by that point had been in the UK for 8 years and was looking to come back to Italy and got a job. He works in shoes, so got a job working with Calvin Klein. So we saw that as a very good reason to move. So, but in terms of what I'm doing now, I had a second kid and Dora. And after she was born, I realized quite quickly that I was really missing doing the filming. And so I bought up a camera kit. And ever since then, I've been working on my own, sort of using those skills that I got acquired from the BBC and at ITV as well, was another network where I worked. And so I put those skills together and just managed to start really looking for jobs. And since I've done that, I've worked with clients like UNICEF has a base in Florence, so I've done a lot of work with them. I did a huge project for the Uffizi galleries, which was about 15 documentaries that I filmed in 4 months. And I've worked with the Regione Toscana and Toscana Promozione Turistica. So I've delivered quite a few projects, which I'm really proud of the clients that I've managed to find.
Absolutely.
Because it's not that easy. But in terms of what kickstarted Souls of Italy, which is my new project, I'd reached a point where I think after all these years, I found there was a bit of a disconnect with the audience, that what I would be doing is working to deliver a film, or it could be a documentary, could be even social content. And I reached a point where I realized that I wasn't really connected or seeing where those films were going.
Thank you for helping me and ask about Souls of Italy, because it is one of the many reasons why I wanted you to come here today. It is your new project. It has been received incredibly well. And I want to talk a little about what inspired you to start it, because I remember you and I talking about it maybe like a year ago, and you kept saying to me, I have this idea, I have this project, I have this thing, and then one day I just saw it and I was like, wait, Kirsten's doing this and it's wonderful. So talk to me a little bit about what Souls of Italy is, and what prompted you to start it.
So basically, like I said, I was doing, if I could take a step back and first of all answer the question about what it is I actually do, because that's the question that really fills me with dread. Because I do a kind of combination between documentary making, journalism, and there is a touch of cinematography as well to what I do.
Absolutely.
In terms of drone shots and the lenses that I use. So it's really hard for me to answer that question specifically about what it is that I do. Because, and even with the clients that I've been working on up until starting Souls of Italy, I would do a huge range of different content. I might do events, I might do social media content, and I might be doing documentaries usually about connected to art, usually for American clients because it's such a big thing in Florence. So I would probably have considered myself a bit of a kind of one-woman production team. So at one point I counted the different roles that I do, and I counted 11 different jobs. Because in terms of from start to finish, realizing a project and dealing with the clients to the point of filming and directing on the shoot, to storyboarding, to editing, to color correction, to sound, I do it all. Even fly the drone. I've got a license to fly the drone. So it's really exciting and it's really liberating. But I found doing the projects that I was doing, it's also quite limiting because obviously I'm not a production company and I can never produce things at the same quality as 11 people doing those jobs.
Right.
So, and as I was going around, for example, I did I was filming a big project for Toscana Promozione Turistica. And I remember thinking that while I was filming, there were lots of other stories that I was noticing. Likewise with the Uffizi, for example, I went to this amazing town in the Casentino, Poppi.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a castle there which looks like a film set. And I befriended or got to know the librarian there. And I went to film on a day when it was closed to the public. And she was the only person in this beautiful castle.
Incredible.
And so I remember thinking, what is that like? And I asked her, are you not scared to be in this castle, like literally locked up in this one, sort of heated room in the castle? And she was just laughing about it and said that there was meant to be a ghost in the castle. But I remember thinking that would be a really sweet little story to tell.
Yeah.
Kind of almost behind the scenes, and you just don't. I would never have seen that in the UK, because usually things are open to the public, and even though there are behind the scenes content potentially for castles, though. Anyway, that was kind of the starting point. Was also realizing that there are quite a few joyful moments about living in Italy, and that I really wanted to capture those. So I wouldn't say it happens every day, but quite often, I would say every 3 days
It
or
happens
so.
a lot.
There are amazing things that happen.
There's still a lot of humanity here.
There is an
Right?
awful lot.
Yeah.
And so I have umpteen stories where, for example, I'll be cycling, having forgotten to do the shopping, 2 hungry kids at home, and the food on the handlebars as I'm struggling on my bike up the hill, and a kind of elderly gentleman pushing the back of the bike to help push me up the hill. Or it could be the postwoman who's like shouting up to a neighbour to, she's got a parcel for them. And there are so many things, even the way that a lot of Italian parents are just very in the moment with their kids. I think Italians have an amazing natural ability to do it. Even my husband does it far better than I do. So I think there was a touch of wanting to encapsulate that as well with Souls of Italy. So so that was another, maybe a bit of a counter to a lot of the kind of noise and the negativity that we see when we're out, when the news is on and so on. It has quite a kind of negative effect on me and lots of others.
Yeah, all of us, honey. All of us.
Yeah, no. And it was a way, I think, of trying to counter that without getting too deep or philosophical about it. But I could feel myself falling into kind of quite dark thoughts about the future and about the way the world is. And I would realize that there was a big disconnect or contradiction, let's say, to what I was seeing on TV and hearing on the radio and what I would at times experience on a day-to-day basis, which were genuine moments of joy and kindness and consideration as well, regardless of the fact that I am a foreigner. Okay, I'm white, I'm privileged, so my experience of living in Italy is vastly different to many others who come from different countries that are not England or Britain. But that said, I still experience Italians as a foreigner. And so you become more aware of kindness, I think, when you are in that position. So I think I wanted to do something that I felt would just give a bit more attention to those moments and not to remind people. I'm not out on a quest to convince people of certain ways of thinking or believing, but that was certainly one idea I had.
Yeah. And I have to say, first of all, I mean, I'm in love with the project, but I think what I appreciate most about it, in addition to just that you put out these micro moments of authenticity and joy and humanity, which we, as you rightly said, we need now more than ever. But I think you're showing a side of Italy that unfortunately does not get out there as often as it should. And so, in my opinion, your work is crucial because it's in direct contrast to a lot of what we see, for example, most of what we see on social media, which is just a simulacrum. It's just not the reality of the country. And I think the fact that you look at things through the lens of a foreigner, even though now you're, an adopted Florentine or what have you, makes them even more special because you have sort of the closeness, but also the objectivity. So I've told you many, many times that I think we need Souls of Italy and projects like this now more than ever. And I think what has most struck me about the contents of your they're short films. I mean, how long are they?
They're a minute and a half.
They're a minute and a half. And what you do is, especially what I love about it, in addition to focusing on the kindnesses and finding the joy in the ordinary, you also really focus on, for example, artisans, community, and authenticity that really risk extinction. So how do you sort of choose your subjects?
So I have 3 criteria for choosing a film. Talking in terms of looking at the video side of it and that just purely the logistics of filming, which are first and foremost, it needs to have a story. Mm-hmm. Second of all, I need to think about the visuals. So what potentially I could film with a drone, or could be how I tell that story. What is it that I can actually see in that minute and a half? And the third is about the personality of the person. Now, the order of those in terms of importance can vary. So I might have somebody who has a less outgoing personality, but is doing something really interesting or that makes me kind of curious, or that even challenges certain stereotypes about what people do. Probably my least watched film is about a woman farmer who grows sunflowers, but she's there driving this enormous oversized tractor, and I found that quite curious. And she's a lovely woman. I also have additional criteria to how I feel that I basically need to like the person. And it's not that I dislike many people, but I know when I feel that warmth and that sincerity.
Right, a connection. And that
Definitely.
comes through. It comes through in the films. It comes through that you love telling this story, that you want to tell this story, And so I think that's a crucial criterion, because that's what makes it even more endearing and warm. And I think that's why the response has been so good.
Yeah. I mean, they are people. The majority of the films that I've done are people that I interact with.
Right.
So, for example, my mechanic, or the people that I buy fruit and veg from.
Yeah, I loved all of those because we live in the same neighborhood.
Yeah.
So I know all the same people. It's like, our neighbors.
So I have a rapport with them already, and I just notice things about the way they might have treated me, or the way the things that they're doing for other people. And so that makes me kind of curious. And going back to the point as well about being a foreigner in Italy, is that you've also got another point of reference, which is that, that's not necessarily done in my experience in where I grew up in Canterbury, in the southeast of the UK. So that said, when I do go back to the UK, I am really, really struck by how much humanity there is. And living away from it, and post-Brexit, which I'll try not to get too much down this road, but there is again this kind of sense of this disconnect, I guess, with my home country. But when I go back, it's there by the bagful. It's everywhere. It's not just in Italy, and I really don't believe it is. I think Italians are quite magical in terms of being out there, and they have a different way of living to the UK, which is harder and more work focused, I would say, is a sweeping generalization, I know. However, it's still there. It's everywhere.
Yeah. And I think also Italy has this, a lot of action sort of plays out in open spaces. You have the piazza, the passeggiata. There is still a sense of, I'm not saying it doesn't exist in the UK or in the States, but you really do and maybe it's also the nature of a city like Florence. You just happen to run into people a lot. You have these interesting encounters. You witness these random acts of kindness also because, it's small, and just there's always a lot, I think, going on even on the street. I want to talk about one of the videos that went viral. Mm-hmm. I want to talk about Rodolfo, the tailor, because this video just exploded. Tell us a little bit about the story and why you think that particular video struck a chord with people.
So Rodolfo is a tailor who lives on Via Romana, which is in the Porta Romana area of Florence. And I walk past his shop umpteen times a day. And I noticed a couple of years ago a sign went up which was celebrating 60 years of business. And I was like, that's incredible. It was during COVID though, so I imagined that he didn't really celebrate.
Yeah.
Anyway, I decided that it would be lovely to try to ask him if he would do an interview. And I had to go in there 5 times to convince Rodolfo to be interviewed. And when I first walked in, I just will never forget his just face would just, his expression would actually fall. There was no sense of joy in seeing me.
I was like, here she is again.
At one point, I think it was the 3rd time, he literally asked me, almost his hands in kind of prayer position, like, Signora, per piacere, lasciami in pace. Like, just leave me, let me be. And so I felt really bad. But then a month later, I went back. And the 5th time, I think it was just luck or my persistence. I'm not really sure. But he agreed to do it. And his shop is remarkable because it literally is like a step back in time. It's not changed at all. So you have the stacks of materials in the rolls on each side. You have sort of tidbits of suits that are in various phases of completion. And he's got his little workshop at the back of the shop. So it is really quite a remarkable place. I mean, it could be a film set. So, but in terms of why it was so successful, it's quite hard to identify. I would say it's a great story. The visuals, but using my own criteria, the visuals are definitely there because the shop has just got all of these little details of like, you know, photos of him with various VIPs from like the 1960s. We've got the story, which is that there's a shop that is unchanged. And then his personality. To be honest, Rodolfo is a bit of a grumpster.
Yeah, but that's what makes it so great.
Yeah.
Because even after it went viral, how many views did it get on TikTok? Something crazy.
1.7 million.
1.7 million views, right? And there's an article published in the paper about him and everything. And you go back to the store.
Yeah.
And he's just like, whatever. And it's so funny because you film it. You go back to the store and you're like, he wasn't impressed. You know, well, he's just doing his thing.
He could not give 2 toffees about it. And I actually have been back about 2 weeks ago and I just wanted to check in on him. And he did smile when he saw me, which was an absolute... And then I was like, I just don't know why I didn't bring my camera because behind him, there were rows and rows of suits.
Wow.
And I said, you look... Rodolfo, you look busy. And he's like... I've never been busier. And then he looked at me and quickly said, it's nothing to do with the video, you understand? And I said, oh, okay. And soon after it was posted, I was in a curious position because I was in the UK visiting. I had no internet connection. I posted it, but I had no way of seeing how it was doing or how well or badly it was doing. And I would get sporadic updates if and when I had connection. And one of the messages that I got, I could see it was doing well. And one of the messages I had was from his grandson asking me to remove Rodolfo's address because he was being overwhelmed by people walking into the shop and trying to take photos and selfies and so on. And because I wasn't in Florence at the time, I experienced a kind of panic because I had no idea of what was happening, like whether I had visions of like small crowds potentially, not because of my film, but because he had clearly sort of made a mark on people. And then it's just this idea that it was totally out of your hands by that point.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a very comfortable feeling, to be honest. I was delighted that people were watching it. I didn't really know how to process that, but
Yeah.
it was also concern for him because he literally just wants to be left alone. He is at his happiest. He's a very solitude figure, and he's just happy being able to work. And when people interrupt that, he gets very unhappy. So, but when I raised that with him during the follow-up film,
Yeah.
he was like, I don't know what, complete denial. I have no idea what you're saying. Nobody has walked into the shop. So I'm like, either I got misinformed by his grandson, or
he's playing
Rodolfo
me.
is just like not prepared to give any kind of credit at all.
No. And I think, there are a few reasons why it's become so successful. I think, people like that are a dying breed. I don't even know that they exist, maybe a little in other places, but in Italy, that's really disappearing. And so seeing this person who at his age still goes into his little shop every day, the same thing he's been doing for so many years. He's an artisan. He's, crafting these beautiful bespoke suits and is a fixture in the neighborhood. I think people love these stories, and that, again, we need stories like this more than
If
ever.
I can answer the question,
Please.
which I haven't done in my waffly telling
Yes,
these
you have
little stories.
a little, but expound.
But I have also tried to look at what it is that made that so great. I think the music was a big role in it because I used the music from Up, which is the marriage story, which is kind of one of the most heart-rendering moments in Up. But it obviously also has parallels with the story of Rodolfo, which is that he's in this little time capsule. And while Florence has changed all around him, he's just keep on, just like the character of the cartoon Up. He's just carrying on with his life. And it's not that he's oblivious to the changes going on around him, but he just doesn't want them to affect him in any way.
Yeah.
And so he's just head down and keeps on making suits. I think as well the first shot is really, really compelling, and anyone who's got anything to do with social media will know the first 2 seconds are crucial. And so you have this elderly man in a trench coat, pulling up on a faded red Vespa, which actually is now banned in the centre of Florence, and he's in all sorts of trouble for that. But again, doesn't really care; he just drives in.
Goes about his life.
Yeah, and then I think also what's been an amazing part of this project in general, but particularly with Rodolfo's story, was looking at the comments. Like, there have been thousands and thousands of comments. I think on Instagram it was like 2,000-3,000 comments alone, and other platforms more. And I tried to categorize them. So there were lots of compliments about beautiful story, what a great man, sort of doffing the hat to his mastery and so on. But the majority of the comments were also filled with a huge sense of sadness. And that was very much connected to nostalgia and this sense, as you said, that Florence is going through a huge transformation at the moment. And that film is everything, I think, that people think are great about Florence, about the artisans, and the fact that in all probability, once he goes, and let's hope that's far in the future, but that particular activity won't continue. So, and that was, there were people that had written that they felt moved to tears, which I find amazing from my point of view. I love that. I love to make the idea that the films can have an impact on people, because it means that I've managed to communicate something and touch them in some way. And it's not because of me or my genius as a filmmaker or lack of genius, but it's the fact that I saw something and it honors that of Rodolfo. And so now it's out in the public for people to see.
And it'll stay. And I think it is an important testimony to this Florence that, unfortunately, as I mentioned earlier, is risking extinction. And it's so important that we tell these stories right now for so many reasons. And I think you're being too humble. I think that you do have this incredible ability to tell stories, compelling stories, to find these, to seek them out, but also to just encounter these incredible stories and people, and then transform them into incredibly powerful micro moments, these little films that capture so much humanity and authenticity. So, what is when you started Souls of Italy, or even now, I would say, what is your goal? Like, what do you want people to take away from these, and what kind of impact, or have you thought about like the long-term impact that these will have?
Not really, in short. I am very much sort of existing week by week. I'm loving the kind of editorial side of it, which is, oh, I feel like I've been in Florence a bit too much, so now I need to get out. I know I'm going to go to the seaside this week. So that is very, very satisfying, but also creates a huge amount of pressure on myself, because then I'll need to find the story, or perhaps use something that I have filmed in my archives. Because the original idea for this was very, very simple and straightforward, which was that when I was going around filming some of the larger projects that I did, for example, I did one as well for the American consulate, which was celebrating 200 years of diplomatic relations in Italy. And so as I was going around, I would hoover up really quick, short interviews with people. And so I really thought that that would be it would take that very simple format and be a great opportunity to reuse some of my archival material. But as the weeks have gone by, I want to do more, focus far more on the storytelling. But of course, those stories are harder to find.
Yeah.
They're not impossible, but I mean, I have ideas that are as long as my arm, and I have a rolling database of
Wow.
ideas.
Yeah.
So there's no shortage of ideas. There is definitely a shortage of time.
Yeah, it takes a long
And
time.
I need to be efficient in the way that I work. So I'll always storyboard as much as I can beforehand, so that I know exactly what I need to film, and more or less what the sound bites are. So, but in terms of where it's going, I mean, I'm just really enjoying right now the fact that people are enjoying watching the films and I'm enjoying making them. The idea was that it would, yes, be a great advert for what it is that I do and what I offer, but I also think there's huge commercial potential for doing that kind of storytelling. That said, since I've started, I've been approached by quite a number of people, hotels and two fashion brands, about doing content for them. But I think they will watch a film like Rodolfo and say, "Yeah, I want that. I want something that's going to make me feel really nostalgic." And I have to be really careful that what I can offer on a commercial basis will be somewhat different to what it is I'm doing. So I'm still not quite sure how those two are bridged. If they're working with amazing personalities, and I don't know, maybe they've got staff, or maybe they organise events with people that have got amazing personalities, or they're doing remarkable things, then that obviously makes what I do have potentially easier. But it's not that they can call me up and then I give them like this beautiful nostalgic story on a plate, because I need the people
It
there.
has to be there, right?
Yeah,
The
yeah.
Rodolfo video blew up because Rodolfo's Rodolfo,
Exactly.
right? And all the other films. I remember you're telling me about, this was like a couple of years ago, when you had told me about the woman who works at the English cemetery over by Piazzale Donatello, right? And I remember you're telling me her story and how much you loved talking to her and how much you loved her story. So there has to be that spark for you. There has to be something that then drives that, the creativity you have and the way you tell the story and how you bring it to people. And that's not something you can just like snap your fingers and hope for. It has to be there. And I think that's why the videos are so good, is because the same way that those people impacted you, you then share with everyone else, right? And so it's sort of the prime material has to be there for it to then manifest into this beautiful project you've come up with.
I mean, a lot of people think as well that I'm focused on artisans, which I think was one of your questions, but I'm not.
No.
That's never, ever been my goal.
It just happened. But some of your people are, but it's really, you focus on ordinary people.
I can also talk about what I'm trying to do with
Please
Souls of
do.
Italy, but it's in some ways easier to say what I'm not doing.
Yeah.
And so what I'm not doing is I will never do an event. I've been asked to do loads of events.
What do you mean by
well, someone might say, "Oh, we've got a wine tasting event. Come and do a film on that." No, I won't do that. If there's a wine producer with a really interesting story,
Sure.
even wine producing, I was thinking for the grape picking, maybe I could do something, but I was like, I'm trying not to tie it too much to the annual calendar.
Yeah.
I'm trying to because that then gives me a bit more freedom and doesn't tie me in to do something at Christmas or Easter.
Right.
But for me, the starting point has to always be a story. So I did do an event which was a Scottish festival in Barga, which is this beautiful town, for those that don't know it, in Tuscany, and there are, I think, half the population of this small town can trace their heritage to Scotland.
I saw that. That was crazy. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
It's a great story.
So every year they have a fish and chip festival,
so cool.
And they have a Scottish festival. So I went along and I was like, I could do it. And then I was like, but I need more.
Yeah.
I need much more. And so I did, sounds bizarre, it's totally unrelated, but I did the guys that use the Ape as a transportation system, and they were helping set up and transport stuff during this very busy weekend because Barga is on a hill and with very narrow lanes, which can only be accessed using a tiny Italian vehicle, this Ape that makes a very loud noise like a bee, which is where it got its name from. So it was enormous fun. It was very, very hectic and at times a little stressful, but it was great fun. But I was able to tell that story about how, the backdrop was this event. I can also say that I won't do things that are commercial per se. That I'm trying. If there is a story there and there's a commercial potential, then that's great. I'll tell that story. But it's not that's the driving force. I'm really trying to keep it quite separate in that way. And I've also been asked because at the beginning of August I had 90 followers. And then after Rodolfo, and ever since, I now have 32,000 followers. So I think people want to use that as a platform and think the platform obviously would potentially have commercial possibility. Yeah. But I don't want to do that either. So I might be shooting myself in the foot by not doing that. But it's that's not where I see this going.
No, and you're being true to, I think, the mission of the project, which is to just tell very good, very authentic human stories and not to exploit, people or your platform or what have you. I was hoping, I'm not sure when this episode will air, but I would love it if you gave us a little, maybe some sneak peeks about, what we can expect in the future, or ideas that you have, or something you have in your archive that you're thinking about putting out, or just a story that you love that you hope to be able to get out there soon.
Yeah, I have a ton. Don't know where to start. The most do I talk about the most interesting? I have Ghostbusters. Cosplay Ghostbusters.
Okay.
That I've filmed last weekend.
Fun.
This weekend I'm doing a pigeon racer.
A pigeon racer?
Yeah, it sounds a bit bizarre, but he's a really sweet guy.
There are a lot of pigeons.
There are a lot of pigeons. Right? And they do races.
I didn't know that. See?
Yeah.
I'm learning all these things.
Which I always thought was a very British thing, but apparently
Evidently
not.
It's international.
So on Sunday they're being set free from just south of Rome, and they're going to take about 4 hours to fly up to Tuscany, and we're going to film them arriving, not with a drone because that would be potentially dangerous. I have a grave digger, which is quite interesting. I have an Italian couple who have 9 kids. Yeah. So they're
I didn't.
bucking the trend.
Nice, because they're making, they're keeping, well, they're contributing to raising at least the population a little, because for those who don't know, Italians are notorious for not having many children at all lately. 9 children. They live here, or
They live here and they're Italian. Yeah. And I think that will be quite a good story.
really
I
compelling
haven't
story.
filmed it yet, but I'm in
Okay.
touch with them.
Interesting.
And then I have a lot that I need to chase up. For example, I saw a guy who was probably in his 60s with big headphones on, like teenagers wear.
Yeah.
And he was belting out this opera music, and he was singing to himself as he was walking along the road. At first, I thought he might have some mental health problems, which I have experienced with some people that I've interviewed. And it's not that I don't want to give them coverage, but I need to handle it with particular sensitivity, because I have the utmost respect for people that I interview, and I don't ever, ever, ever want there to be a sense that there might be comeback from that.
Yeah.
So the other day, for example, I was driving along, and I saw an elderly man who's just sat by the road with a telecomando in his hand, and there's a little boat in front of him. And so I pulled up, and I'm going to be interviewing him as well.
Wonderful.
So I randomly walk up to people, and I love it when they say no, because it's a sign that I have to pursue them. There's a watchmaker on Clock Repairman who's on Via Romana as well.
Yeah.
And I've been talking to him for years about filming. And the last time I went in, he said, "No, I just can't be bothered. I can't. Why would I do it?" And so I will pursue him.
You're persistent. You're good. You'll convince him eventually.
And I need to find more women. What I'm finding is that I have a disproportionate number of elderly old men, which might say something about me.
Or the demographics of, I don't know, or where are the women? I don't know. That's interesting.
And I'm also trying to be careful not of the women that I do not to have them in the kind of caretaking role, or
exactly.
in the kind of beauty mode.
Yeah.
But and that makes it harder, because of the women that I know, they usually are in those contexts,
right?
Or doing embroidery or something, sort of women's work, or cooking,
right?
But I mean, yeah, that's
you'll
something
find. I feel like you're going to find them. I have a question that just came to me that I don't think I had put down on our list. But has anyone come to you saying, like, I have a great story, wanting you to interview? Loads.
Yeah, I'm getting contacted a lot.
But non-commercial. I'm just talking about like your average Joe.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I've had quite a few people say, "Will you come and interview my grandma, my granddad?"
How funny!
Because they're in their 90s,
right?
And I think they want a record.
That's really lovely.
Which is really nice.
It's really sweet.
I've had quite a few people. So I've got so many ideas. It's unbelievable. This summer as well, my husband's from a small village towards Collodi, which is famous for Pinocchio.
Pinocchio, yeah.
And I managed to find a number of stories, because we decamped there. It's higher up than Florence, and so therefore cooler in the unforgiving heat of the summers here. Yeah. And so that was a great opportunity to just zip around, because straight away my husband's tapped into a lot of people there. And for example, there's one valley, it's called the Valeriana, and there's a valley where they have 10 small they call them castelli, I guess like hamlets.
Yes.
Or
yeah.
I can't remember the English word.
I think hamlets. No.
And they each have a church. But a couple of the villages are struggling with depopulation.
Yeah.
And so, for example, I'm in contact with the guy who has the key to to the church, and he still rings the bell. But I love that idea as well. The idea that he's ringing a bell that won't necessarily be heard. Yeah.
It's really beautiful.
So
really
I try
poetic.
Always with the films to say something about, to have them, and this is where I think the documentary
that training comes in. Yeah.
So it may be depopulation, it might be over tourism, it may be about how we treat our elderly, it might be about where we get our food from, it could be anything like that. But what I always make sure that the films have something to say.
Yeah, that there's a larger sort of takeaway. What's next for you?
Well, my dream scenario is to pitch a format to Netflix where I have maybe 3 stories bolted together to make up different episodes.
I was thinking that, that
Yeah.
you should turn this into a mini series for sure. People, please, if whoever's listening, although that might already be in the works, I don't know.
You never know.
Oh,
No, it's not.
but it's a great,
time.
but it's a phenomenal idea because obviously people respond to these stories. Again, we need stories like this more than ever. You're preserving these moments that are crucial that we need not only right now, but that we're going to want to look back on. But there's also those underlying messages which are getting lost in the noise right now. They're getting lost. And people need to be reminded that these people exist, that these moments exist, that this world beyond what we see, which is so ugly, and we're inundated with ugliness, and you're bringing this beauty and humanity and just reality and great storytelling. And that's what people need, and I think that's what people crave. I think that's why the reaction has been so incredible, why people have approached you, why the project will, I think, continue to be successful, because there's a lack of this right now.
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree. It's my other dream is to collaborate, and I'm talking to 2 travel companies.
Huh.
So it's still early days,
Okay.
but let's see. I think there is potential there. I'm just not quite clear how that would look.
Okay.
So that I can protect the kind of what it is that I do.
Yeah.
And without over-promising potential clients, so that they're, like I say, expecting something. But I'm just really enjoying it, and I've also had an incredible opportunity to meet so many lovely people because I'm choosing people that I like.
Yeah.
We then film together. The number of times I have to edit my own voice out, or I have to stabilize my own camera shots because I'm laughing so much.
Right.
I mean, it is quite absurd, Fosco. It really is. So in that sense, I have never, ever had so much fun in what I'm doing.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
I'm so happy for you.
And
I'm so happy for you.
satisfaction as well.
Yeah.
So, and I try to reply to every single comment that's made. So it is a challenge, especially when people just leave hearts. I'm like, how do I reply to the thanks?
With another heart. With another heart. So tell everyone out there where they can find Souls of Italy, where it is, when it comes out.
So I publish a reel, which is 1.5 minutes long, and that comes out every Friday. And that's on Instagram, it's on TikTok, it's on Facebook. And I do also upload it in both formats, which is a bit odd, onto YouTube.
Okay.
But that's just because some older people don't have the social platforms necessarily. They're not part of it. So, and then I post a couple of stories that are follow-up stories to each reel. So that's it. And it's Souls of Italy.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I hope you'll come back to talk about new projects and when you have your Netflix miniseries out or extended series out, we'll come back and do a follow-up interview. Thanks so much for coming today.
Thanks for having me.